Hi, and welcome to this DCP Web Excel bookkeeping for small business tutorial. So in the first part of this tutorial, we're going to focus on invoice tracking. So I've been running my business for quite a few years, and I use 3 simple spreadsheets to keep track of my books in terms of invoice payments, all my expenditures, and even creating invoices, right? So I have these 3 simple spreadsheets that I use. So in the first part of this tutorial, we're going to focus on invoice tracking. So what does that actually mean? It means that we're going to create a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet will allow us to document all the invoices that we sent to all of our customers for a whole year. And in that spreadsheet as well, we'll be able to work out which clients have paid us and which ones haven't, the method that they paid, and also the date that they've paid, and a few other bits of information. So let's go ahead and open up Microsoft Excel, and we'll start the first part of this tutorial. So I've got Excel open here. I'm using the latest version. I'm going to go to File, Save As, and we'll go to my desktop. Let's find my desktop here, and we'll find this tutorial here. So inside this folder on my desktop, you see that in the top right hand corner in a moment. I'm just going to call this spreadsheet. Let's just call it Invoice Tracker. In fact, what we call it is 00 dash, so put 00 space dash space invoice tracker, and then put today's date. So today's the 26th of the 7th 2019, and we'll click save. So we've got a blank spreadsheet here. I'm going to use the control key and the mouse wheel to zoom in a little bit, and normally I'll name the sheet down here. Let's just call that invoice tracker for 2019, and then you can label this 2020, 2021, and so forth as you're running your business. But this one spreadsheet will keep it, and then we'll give that to our accountant, and it will be a very set of clean books. And also every week or every couple of days or every month, you can go back to this spreadsheet and find out which customers have paid you, which ones haven't, and so forth, right? Let's click the save button, and in this first column here, this first row, the row number 1, is going to be our titles. So we're going to put all our header titles in here, and the first one we're going to have is invoice date, and in column B we're going to have invoice number. Let's just type in invoice number, and we'll have date paid, and we're also going to have payment type. Let's just fix that, payment type. So you can see as I'm typing this information, it's not quite clear. So all we do is left click up here in the top left hand corner. That will highlight the whole spreadsheet, and then just move the mouse cursor in between columns A and B, or A and B and C, or any of them, and just double click with your left mouse button. That will just resize all of the columns so you can see the titles clearer. And we'll continue writing some more titles in here. The next one will be reference, and the one after that will be description, and then we'll have company name, and we'll have company location, and then finally we'll have cost, and then paid column. So this is a small business bookkeeping tutorial. I may do another one later which will deal with VAT, or maybe I'll make a 4th tutorial. So I'll do the first 3 parts, and maybe at the end I'll show you how to transform these spreadsheets into a VAT applicable methodology or documentation, let's say. Yeah. So we've got invoice date, invoice number, the date that was paid for this payment, for this particular invoice, the payment type, the reference, the description, company name, company location. We can probably put just location in here. We don't really need company there. It's just location, cost, and paid. So let's click on number 1 and make them bold. We'll select the letter B here to make them all bold. And if you're not seeing these correctly, just remember left click here and you just double click inside here, and it will sort them all out in the column widths. And the first thing we want to do is sort out these column formatting. So we're going to click on the letter A, and this is invoice date, so the software is expecting this to be a date. But if you will notice, you've got date paid here, you've got a date paid column. So we're going to hold down the shift key and left click on that one. In fact, we'll click on letter A, and we'll hold down the control key and click on the letter C. That will highlight or select only these 2 columns here. and we're going to right click and go to format cells, and we'll go to date, and you can pick a relevant date depending on your location. You can select other locations in this drop down, but typically when you install Microsoft Windows, you're going to select your location during the installation, and then software will also automatically pick that up and give you the right date format. So in the UK we have day, month and year. I know in other countries you have the month, then the day, then the year, but you pick the relevant format that's applicable to you. I'm going to keep it nice and simple and use the top one here and click OK. Nothing really seems to happen here, but until you start doing some data entry, you won't really see the formatting being applied. So invoice number, that can just be its default value. So when we go to format cells, we can see it's just labeled as general. We might change that, but I think that should be fine. Payment type can be general, reference and description and company name and location. These can all be left at general. Then cost, we need to make sure we set that to a currency. So let's right click, or let's left click on the letter I, right click on it and go to format cells. Inside here we're going to select currency, and again you should see different currencies based on your particular location. If you don't see the right one, you can select this drop down and select the relevant country. We'll leave it at 2 decimal places and select this first value up here and click OK. So now that we have a formatted spreadsheet, we can think about the type of data that we want to enter. So we're going to make this some fictional information in here, and then I'm going to show you how to format this spreadsheet so that you can track the information. So let's put in a date. For argument's sake, I'm going to start this from the 1st of the 1st 2019, right at the beginning of this year. So let's just say that we started a business, and on the first day of the year, we want to put in a date here, right? So we've got 1st of the 1st 2019, and you can see Excel will format that out in this particular format style. So if I left click here, then right click and then go to format cell, I can pick other types of cell formatting in here. Maybe we'll do this one here, like 14th for the 3rd 22nd. In fact, I like the top one, but let's pick another one just so you can see. So I'll select this second version and click OK, and now it's 1st of January 2019. But I don't like to read dates like that. I like to select here, right click, format cells, and set them to this top value, and then I think that's kind of the best formatting. I want to left align all of my content, so let's enter some data, then we'll left align it afterwards. Invoice number. Now this is a number that you can make up yourself, right? And if you want to stretch out the columns, you can just move between A and B and C and just stretch them out a little bit more, so you've got more space to see stuff. I'll zoom in here a little bit more for you. And invoice number, this is something that you can make up for yourself. So my company is called DCP. It's called DCP Web Designers, but DCP can be an acronym, right? And then we want to give it an invoice number. So normally the invoice number, I start off with in fact it's all one set of characters, and normally I do this lowercase, right? So just so it's easier to type in, so it will just be DCP, the year 2019, and then I follow it by 4 digits, so it'll be 0001. So that will allow us to create up to 9,999 invoices for that given year. Or it'll be a very long time before you run out of invoice numbers. You're gonna have to do close to 10,000 invoices before you loop back around to 0001 again. You could add another digit in there and then you'll have even more, but I think this should be more than sufficient. This will probably last you a good 10-15 years. So date paid, we're going to leave this empty for a reason. I'll come back to that. And same with payment type and reference. Description. So in this description, normally when I'm doing this in my own business, I'll put a brief description about the job that I've done for this particular client. And in this description, I'm just going to type in logo design ×3 because I did 3 logo designs for this particular client. And now I need to put in a company name. I'm just going to make this up, so I'm just going to call it Bojo Company Limited. Oh, well, let's just call it Bojo Limited, right? So I just make this up, and then the location will be UK. So the client is based in the UK. Sometimes that's worth knowing for your own reference where your customers are based. I've got customers all over the planet, so I'd like to know that this particular company is based in the UK or America or Germany or wherever they may be. And then we need to put a cost in here. So we don't need to put a pound sign. We're just going to type the value in. So let's just say hypothetically I charge this customer 145, and then on the paid element here I'm going to type in capitals NO, no, because at the moment as I'm doing this data entry, I'm putting this information in here, for tracking purposes. So in the second part of this tutorial, so not in this particular video, the next video, I'm going to show you how to create a custom invoice in Excel. And this information, this line piece of information, will take that information and put it into this invoice that we design in Excel, and then we'll be able to save that invoice as a PDF file and email it directly to the customer. So the purpose of this spreadsheet is only to track what invoices have we sent out and which customers have paid us and which ones haven't. So right now you can see a lot of the content, or some of the content right aligned and some of it's left aligned, so it looks a little bit messy. So let's click on number 2. In fact, let's click on the top left here to highlight the whole spreadsheet and click here to left align everything. Now any data that we enter into this spreadsheet will always be left aligned. Now let's say that's the only invoice that we sent out on the 1st of the 1st, but we did another job on the 2nd of the 1st and we want to create a new line of information. So you could type in the 2nd of the 1st 2019, or you can click here, and I'm going to zoom quite close in here, hopefully you're about to see this. In the bottom right hand corner there's a little square dot. If you roll your mouse over it, the mouse icon will change color. If you left click and hold down the mouse button using the left mouse button, hold it down and drag down one, it's going to generate the next date for you. So sometimes I'm invoicing maybe 3 or 4 clients all on the same day. So let's imagine it's the 2nd of the 1st 2019 and you've got 3 invoices to send out. This is exactly how I would do it. I first left click on this this particular cell. I then hold down my left mouse button and drag down one. So now I've got the 2nd of the 1st 2019, but I don't drag down 2 or 3. Right, I only drag down 1. Then I'll click on here, press Ctrl C to copy and paste it down twice. Now I've got my date sorted out. So I've got 3 invoices to send out on this particular date. So that just saves me doing typing, right? If I undo that quickly, and if I do that a little bit quicker, normally I just drag down one, copy, and I'll select both of these cells and then press Ctrl V. That's even a quicker way to do it, right? The reason why I say you copy and paste, because if you click here and drag down lots of them, you're going to generate the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. And you don't want that. Well, you may want that, but for me, I'm doing this work on a particular day, right? So I want to copy this down to represent 3 different invoices. There could be the same customer, but 3 different invoices for 3 different jobs, or 3 different invoices for 3 different customers, right? Same with the invoice number. We don't want to type this in, so we just drag it down like we did with the date. This one we can drag all the way down because we want to generate a unique invoice number for each one of these invoices, right? We send them out all on the same day, but each invoice should have a unique number. That way when the customer calls you or you call your customer and you say you haven't paid invoice DCP 2019-003, they'll be able to find that invoice and pay you quickly, or they may make a query on the invoice. So you just ask them for the invoice number. You can check and maybe you made some data entry problem and for whatever reason the invoice is incorrect. So it's easy for them to reference and for you. In this description, we're going to put some more descriptions in here quickly. So I'm just going to write website design, and in here I'm going to do business card design, and finally in this column here let's do leaflet design, right? So we did 3 jobs. It just so happens that we did this job for Gold, I'm just making this up, right? Gold Grove Limited, yeah? So we did that job for that company. We also did the same job, or a different job, but for the same company again. So I'll just cut and paste it down. And one other thing, as this spreadsheet starts to fill out with lots and lots of information, you want to be typing the minimum amount as possible, right? So if I type in the letter G, Excel will look down this column. Imagine if you've got hundreds of rows of data in here. Excel is going to look down the column and it's going to find the letter G, and it's going to find what did you use last time, or what other letter G's are in this particular column that start with G, these companies, and it's going to give it to you straight away. So all I need to do is type in the letter G and hit enter if I'm billing the same company again. And I'm going to build this Bojo company again, so I'm going to type in Shift and B to make a capital B, and then just hit enter. So all I have to do is press Shift and the capital letter, the first letter, and just hit Enter key. Obviously, when you've got more companies in here, then it's going to give you more selections. You have to be a bit careful which one you're selecting. This column here, I normally just copy it and paste it down. But let's say Gold Grove is based in Germany, right? So it's a different it's a company, but it's based in Germany, and we need to put in our costs here. So for website design, let's just make a price up. Let's just say we charge 1,450, and then for business cards, let's say we did £75, and then for the leaflet, let's say we also did £75. I'll click here and then drag down. So I'll click here, press Ctrl C to copy. I'll left click here and drag down to highlight these cells and press Ctrl V to paste, and then I'll press Ctrl S to save. So obviously I'm doing this in my own business, I'm doing this a lot quicker. It's because I'm explaining it to you, it's taking a little bit longer for me to do. But what I'll do is add up to row 10 now. So I'm not really going to explain too much. Well, I will explain, but I'm going to do this pretty quick, right? So let's say that we want to send an invoice on the 4th, right? So we're on the 2nd right now, and we want to send one on the 4th. So I'll drag down one. I'll double left click in here. So double left click and change that to a 4. So we're not sending it on the 3rd, we're going to send it on the 4th, but the invoice number will be the 05 number. And for this we did, let's say we did SEO, some SEO work. We might even describe it a bit better. So like SEO 1 day work, something like this. In this column you don't need to write really big descriptions. I normally just use them for basic reference, and then in the invoice or the email that I send to the client, I'll have some more detailed information, especially for like website design. I'll have a whole specification, right? Maybe a 4 or 5 page document in a PDF file, but I don't need to put that much information in here. I know the company, I know I did a website, I know the date, so it's pretty obvious what I did on that particular point in time. SEO work, let's say that we did this for ABC Limited, and they're based in the UK, and we charge them £195. No. So you can see I'm typing in information a little bit quicker now. So I'm going to do a few more. Let's say that we did 3 of these on the 4th. I'll click here and drag down, and then we did some more work for this Bojo company, and let's call it let's see, newsletter design, right? I do a lot of newsletter design, and then normally I'll put a times and then how many newsletters I did for the company. The business cards, well, you don't have to do that, but sometimes I do many newsletters for the same company, so normally I put like ×1 or ×2, and in fact let's do ×2, right? So let's do ×2. So in this particular invoice I did 2 newsletters. Each newsletter was costed out, let's say £100, so the grand total will be 200. So when I look at this spreadsheet, I'll see 2 invoices, I'll see 200, so I just divide that in my head. I know that I charge them £100 for each invoice. Or it might have been different, it might have been 125 for one newsletter, and 100 or sort of 75 for the other one, because the one was complex and one was less complex, for example. So here we've got 007. Let's put in some more data here, and we'll do something like I'll do a lot of banner adverts as well, right? Banner ad design. And normally when I do banner ad design, I'll put something like the size that I've done, so 250 by 300. It's worth putting in a little bit of information so you know that you did this particular type of banner, and normally I'd say it's like a GIF animation. So when I look at this spreadsheet later, I can see exactly what the job was. I might not remember the details about it, but at least this will tell me enough to go and reference it later. So that company was based in the UK as well, and that company was Gold Grove, this Gold Grove company here. So Gold Grove, in fact let's delete this UK. So we type in G for Gold Grove, we hit enter, and then we type in G for Germany and hit enter, and we'll say we charge £45, and we copy and paste this down. That one's done. I need to do a few more. I don't have to do these, but I just want to show you how this might work. Let's say that we went on a little holiday and we came back on the 12th. So I'll type, this time I could drag down. Sometimes I just type the dates in. So 12th for the 1st, 2019 is pretty easy to type in as well. We'll drag this one down, and let's say that we did another website. Let's call it a lead generation, lead gen website projects, right? And we did this for a new company. Let's call them We Grow Leads Limited. Just make this up, and they're based in the UK, and we charge them £795. And no one's paid at the moment, right? Because when you start your business, normally you have it payment terms. So normally you say on your actual invoice, the invoice that you send to the customer, you need to pay us within 30 days or 14 days or 60 days. Depends on your own business preferences, right? But normally you would explain to the customer, if I send you this invoice, it needs to be paid in 14 days or whatever your terms are. Those are your own business terms, right? So on the 12th, we did a job. Let's do 13, and we actually can go down to 13 here on the 13th of the 1st. We'll drag this down one. We're going to do back. Sometimes, let me just expand this column, right? Make it a bit bigger. We'll squeeze these down for the minute because we're not filling anything in them. So sometimes I need to type in a bit of information, and it's very similar to a description that I've already done before. So let's say that I want to do another banner advert job, or I've done a banner advert job and I want to invoice for it. So sometimes I just look down the spreadsheet, or I type in banner, like BAN, and then Excel again will look up in this spreadsheet column and find me something that's similar to that, right? You may have different variations and permutations of this. So if I hit enter, then I press the up arrow, and then I press F2 on my keyboard, F2. The F2 allows you to edit a spreadsheet cell without having to click on it. So if I press F2, then I can turn this end part to JPEG banner, and I'll change the size to 728 by 90. That's quite a common size, right? 728 by 90. And then we did this for let's say we did it for the Bojo company, right? So we hold down the shift key, type in the letter B, that's done. Then we can type in hold down the shift key, type in the letter U, that's done. We can hold down the shift key and type in N, and that's done. And then we just need to charge the fee, and the fee will be £35, for example. So we've got actually 9 rows done, not 10. So I'm going to do one more to make it 10. So let's do the 14th. See, I'm typing it in, but I don't really need to type it in. I can just click here, drag down one, that's 14th, drag this one down, and you see that we're now on invoice 10, and we want to put some data in here. And I'm going to do a newsletter design. Let's do the newsletter. So type in shift and N, that's newsletter. I'm going to press, let me do this a bit slow for you, right? So hold down the shift key and press the letter N. That will allow me to select newsletter design. I hit the enter key. That moves the selection down one, so you can see the cell below has been selected. I'll hit the up arrow key and I'll press F2, and then I'll type number 1 in here. So I did one newsletter, and we did this for a new company called XY Limited. And we type in the letter, hold down the shift key, type in U for UK. We'll put in the price. It's a newsletter design, it costs £100, and we'll hold down the shift key and type in N. Let's do one more. I'm going to do this one very quickly now. So drag this down. It was for website, shift W, website design. It's for this, let's do We Growth, shift W, shift U. We charged $895, and then shift and N. That's it, done. So we've got a lot of data in. We haven't got a lot of data. In my own business, normally this spreadsheet can be anything up to 500-600, maybe even more. Some months, some years I may send out 500-600 plus invoices, right? Some of them are for lots of small jobs, like just basic jobs, but some of them could be quite, bigger jobs as well. So there's a variation. I'm going to hold down the control key and use my mouse wheel to zoom out a little bit, and then I'll click here and then double click here just to spread out the sheet a little bit more. I'll try and zoom in as close as possible. Maybe let's zoom to, I don't know if we can do smaller. Yeah, 180 is probably good for you, right? So we're gonna have to use our imagination here a little bit, because the second part of this tutorial is actually about designing the invoice. But I'm pretty sure you've seen invoices before. I'm pretty sure you've received invoices to your business, or in your previous businesses you've had a customer that sent, or a supplier that sent you an invoice. So you know what an invoice looks like, right? It has an invoice number, has the company name, the logo, the address. It has a section where it explains what you're paying for. Normally it's like a line by line item, and then you have a subtotal and then a grand total. So I'm going to show you this in the second part of this tutorial. But let's say let's use our imaginations a little bit, and let's say that we created this invoice. We actually have the invoice now, we sent it to the customer. So When I do this data entry, each time I do the data entry, each time I've finished one of these lines, I mark it blue color, blue, like this. So really this whole spreadsheet so far will all be blue. Blue tells me, it's like a visual signal for me. I don't like to use red. Red represents kind of danger, and I don't like to use red color. I like to use blue. Blue means neutral. It just means the customer hasn't paid me yet, right? So we've sent this invoice on the 1st of the 1st 2019. So I wrote this email to this customer. I said, I've done your logo design, please find attached invoice, and you need to, and in the invoice it says please pay within 14 days. So look, we're on the 15th now, right? So we go and check our bank account, maybe on our app on our phone, or we log in online, and we see that this customer's paid us. And normally when a customer pays you, they'll put this reference number in the payment. They don't always do that, but sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, sometimes they just don't bother at all. Or they may put their company name in the reference. On your bank statement you'll see that their company name, or you'll see your invoice number. So let's say that this I'm looking at my bank statement right now, and I looked at my bank statement on the 15th, but the customer actually paid me on the 14th. So all I do is type in the 14th of the 1st 2019, and then I need to decide how did they pay me. And because I'm looking at my bank statement, and I'm going to just say, for argument's sake, they sent me a bank transfer. It's worth knowing how your customers paid you, because some people will send you check payments, some people may give you cash payment, and some people will send you a bank transfer. That's pretty much the only 3 types of payments you're ever going to receive, right? A check payment, which is quite rare. I still have customers sending me checks, but that's probably 1 in 100 payments will be via check. The other one is a bank transfer. Some customers may pay you via PayPal. I would strongly advise that you try and avoid getting paid via PayPal, because there's transaction fees and stuff like this. It's better to get your customer to bank transfer the money to you. It saves them money and it saves you money. So bank transfers in the UK are pretty much free. Overseas payments, you need, the sender of the payment will get charged a fee, but for you to receive it, you shouldn't really get charged anything. Maybe a currency conversion charge possibly. So reference number. When I'm looking at my bank statement, this particular client put their company name, and then they were kind enough to put their company name and also my invoice number. So really, I would always advise, if you're ever making payments to your suppliers, you should put your company name, or just an acronym of it, like DCP there, and then the invoice number following it. Because that way, when I look at my spreadsheet, I'll see that invoice number. Not my spreadsheet, when I look at my bank statement, I'll see that particular invoice number, and I'll see the company name, and automatically I know what that payment is for. It's very easy, because there's only a 01 here. It can only be for this particular invoice that we sent, right? So let me zoom out a little bit here, because we've got a bit more information. Hopefully you're following me so far, and let's just make this a bit wider. So what happens now, we know that this has been paid, so we need to turn the no to a yes. So let's type in our first yes, and it's still blue. So like I said to you, I like to use a lot of visual signals in my spreadsheet. So I'll click on the number 2, and then I'll click it and make it like a light green color, like this. So green tells me it's been paid. I know it's been paid. I've got all the information there about the payment. So whenever I look at this spreadsheet again, I may have like 100 different invoices in here, and all the ones that are green, automatically I ignore them, because I know the customer's been paid. I'm only focused on the blue ones, right? And let's say if we sent this invoice out and it's now like the 20th, it's 5 more days after this date, and this customer hasn't paid us, give the customer a call. Maybe he's on holiday, he's come back and he needs to make payment. So this particular customer has actually paid me in a different way. And let's say he paid me on the 20th, right? So it's a little bit late, the payment, but he's paid me, or she's paid me. And let's set it to the 20th of the 1st 2019. So the customer eventually paid, but they paid by check. They paid me a check payment. And when I receive a check payment from a customer, I need to fill out a little paying in slip that I give to the bank. So I normally send checks in the post, but if you were to go physically to the bank and give them the check, they'll ask you for your check paying in book, and that check paying in book will have a reference. It will be like a paying in slip, right? So normally I type in slip. You don't even have to type that in. Normally I just type in the slip number, and normally that starts with a lot of zeros, and it will be like a 00001. That will be the first payment slip. I'm going to hit the enter key, and you'll see there's a problem now. I typed in 00001 and Excel automatically assumes that that represents the number 1, which is factually not correct. So I'm going to click on this letter E, right click and go to Format Cells, and I'm going to set it to text value only, text here, and click OK. Now Excel will just treat this column as text values only. So if I type in 00001 and hit enter, now I can see that reference there. Now when I go and look at my bank statement, once the check is cleared and the money's gone into my account, I'll see that same reference on my bank statement, and I'll also see it in my paying book, my check paying in book, right? The payment slip book. I'll see that same reference there. It will be on the little slip that I give to the bank, and it will be on the bank statement. So we can track it in those ways. So it's really important that you document the way that you've been paid. You may think this is quite complex or quite difficult, but trust me, when I started my business, I wasn't doing this, and I learnt my lesson after about 100 invoices, trying to work out who's paid you, how they paid you, when they paid you. It's a real headache. So if you do this on a regular basis, maybe once a week, you go back to your bank statement. Maybe it's the first thing you do on a Monday or the last thing you do on a Friday, or pick whatever day you like. It's entirely your choice, but do it on a regular basis, and that way your books will be like super clean, yeah? And you're doing another thing as well. Let's just click here and let's make it green. And let's copy this, or we can just click here and type in Shift Y and then hit enter, and now that's a yes. So this spreadsheet actually serves two purposes. One, it's really important for you to understand in your business what invoices have you sent, who has paid you, where those companies are located, which is not that relevant, but it's still relevant, and how did they pay you, what date have they paid you, and what was the reference, and what job did you actually do, more importantly, right? And a unique reference number, and what date did you send the invoice to the customer. You've got all that accurate information in here. And what you'll find is, let's say that the business started on the 1st of the 1st 2019. On the 1st of the 1st 2020, in exactly 1 year, you're going to need to give your accounts to your accountant. You're going to need to give your final end of year accounts. So imagine you go to your accountant and you give him this spreadsheet. Everything in green's been paid, everything in blue hasn't been paid yet. I'm chasing those customers. Your accountant is going to be your best friend. He's going to say to you, you've given me literally everything that I need to know, rather than giving him loads of bits of paper in a file and he has to go through one by one. Sometimes accountants like that because they can charge you a lot of money. They can say to you, right, I've got all of these accounts in my hand, I've got 500 invoices, they're all paper based, nothing's been digitally documented. Now I can charge you extra money for me to go and do that work for you. He's going to have to sit there and fill all this information into a spreadsheet. So it's better you do it yourself. Your accountant will charge you less, and you know more about what's going on in your business. So that's really important. I think that's really important. This spreadsheet served me very well for 15 years, so it should serve you very well for 15 years as well. No client has ever not paid me because I always know which ones have and which ones haven't. Right? Maybe in a rare circumstance, a client's disappeared and never paid me, but it's always been a small amount. In my business, what I always do is if a project is small, like £25, I'll just do the work and invoice the customer afterwards. If it's the first time I ever done business with a client, I'll make sure I invoice them first, I'll make sure they pay me first, and then I do the work. If it's a big project, I'll make sure the customer pays out 50% deposit and then 50% on completion. So like, for example, here, this particular invoice would really have been 50% of the total value. So let's fix that a little bit. We've got this lead generation here, we've got this website design. Let's just say that, you know, this sometimes it's all about trust, isn't it? So some customers I've been working for with over 10 years. With those customers, they've never not paid me, they've always paid me on time. So some customers you can just invoice them at the end of the job. Or you may say to the client, look, I need to invoice you 50% because I need money to pay my wages and my staff and so forth, right? Cover some overheads. And they'll always pay that anyway. But let's just say, for example, this customer here, we've never done business with them. They want a lead generation website, and you're going to charge them a total of £795. But really, you want to send them a 50% DPO deposit invoice, right? I just write 50% deposit. What I do is underneath this spreadsheet, I create another little bit of tracking information. So what I do is copy this one here. In fact, I double click on it, select the text and paste it here. Just like this. And in this column here, for example, let's take 795 and divide that by 2. So let's do the real maths. 795 divided by 2 is 397 and 50 pence. So I'll paste that into here, 397.50, and then I'll paste that into here, 397.50. And instead of it saying deposit, I'll say final invoice, yeah? In fact, I will put the word invoice at the end, right? Invoice. So when this customer paid me the deposit, I would have said to them on the 12th of the 1st, here's your 50% deposit invoice, we've agreed everything, please make payment. They may pay the same day, the next day, but pretty much I don't start their job unless I've been working with them for a very, very long time. If it's a new customer, I don't start it until they pay me that 50% deposit. If they want me to put my time and energy in, then I expect them to give me something in return. And sometimes you've got to show a little bit of work before that happens. So maybe a part of this project was a logo design. Maybe I'll start doing a basic logo design for them, send that to them as an example that they can trust me as well. It's about trust going backwards and forwards, isn't it? So I'll put that down here, and we'll do the same with this project here. This one here, right? Actually, it's for the same company, isn't it? Lead generation website and website design. Let's change this one to this XYZ company. Because it's highly unlikely you're going to do 2 websites in the same month for the same client. You may do, one might be a corporate site and one may be just a lead gen site. It's all possible. But let's say that this one was also 50% deposit invoice, right? So I'm showing you how I really do it in my own business. This is how I do it. But I'm actually VAT registered, so I'll have extra columns in here for VAT calculations. Like I said, this is like a small business bookkeeping tutorial. What I'll do is in part 4 of this tutorial, once I've been through all of the main logic, I will create maybe a part 4, and I'll show you how to add the VAT and how to automatically calculate the VAT and do some other good stuff. So let's just do 895 divided by 2. 895 divided by 2 is 44750. We'll copy this and we'll paste it here. Then we'll double click here, select it with our mouse, copy it, paste it here. And there's really one bit of information we're missing from this cut and paste down here. So really what we'll do, I'll fix this in a moment. Let's just copy this and paste it here. So look at these two, look at this bit of information. What is missing? There's something quite critical missing from here, right? We'll actually add that information into here. It's the company name. What use is having this information in here if you don't know who you got to bill afterwards, right? So let's get this correct. And here, so here you can see the company name that you've got to be billing, the amount, and you've already prepared the description already. You've changed it from deposit to final invoice. So that's what I do. I just change deposit to final, cut and paste this in when the invoice is ready to go. I know which company it is. I know how much I've got to send. Very easy, right? And in fact, most of the time I don't even cut and paste this information in. I use what I've already done the data entry for, right? So imagine if I started this lead gen project and now it's the 17th of the 1st and I need to send this invoice. So let's say that this customer paid us. Some invoices don't get paid till later. These people ain't going to pay us till 14 days, for example. But let's say that this lead gen project, I said to the customer, you got to pay this invoice before I start your project. So he paid on the same day. So what I would do is highlight this column. There's a few different ways you can do this, right? You can highlight it first and then do the data entry. That's what I normally do. I highlight it green so I can see what I'm typing into, and then he's paid on the same day. So I'll just click here, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. He did a bank transfer, so I press Shift and B. That's a bank transfer done. And the reference was just my invoice number. So it was only the invoice number. Normally what I do is I log into my online banking system, and whatever the reference is actually on the screen on my online banking, I cut and paste that into the spreadsheet, right? I don't manually type these ones in. I cut and paste it directly from the online screen on my logins for my banking account. So that's really where you should be doing it. So imagine there's a bank account somewhere. You're going to copy, just say that there's a reference, you would copy it from the banking website and paste it into here, because then you've got an accurate description of what that reference is on the actual banking system. So if you have to search for it later on the banking system, it'll be very easy for you to find. If that makes sense, hopefully it does. Let's just type in Shift Y and we'll type in yes here. So let's just say this was a small project, a shorter one. We invoiced on this date, he made the payment on this date. Now it's the 17th, right? it's not the 16th, so we'll drag it down one to make the 16th. We'll double click here and type 17. We're going to create a new invoice. It's going to be invoice 12. You can see some of these will highlight blue, some won't, so we'll fix that in a moment. And it's for a lead gen project. It's the second invoice for this. So we've finished the project now and we need to get this invoice paid. So you've got two options. You can either cut and paste this across, or you can cut and paste this down and edit it. So let me show you both versions. We'll copy this one, copy and paste it down, and we just double click and then double click on the deposit and just type in final here. So that's normally how I do it. Or let's undo that. We've got a reference down here, so we can just select this, press Ctrl C to copy and Ctrl V to paste. That's one of the same job, entirely your choice which way you do it. And then we need to copy the value, right? So really all we need to do is select all of these three here, or all of these four, select them, Ctrl C to copy them, Ctrl V to paste them, and then just change the Y to a no, change the yes to a no, and then all of this is going to be blank because we're invoicing today. He hasn't paid today. He may pay 14 days from today. So let's click on number 13 and we'll go up to here and make it blue. And that invoice is done. Now we just go and create the actual invoice and send it to the customer. That's what we're going to do in part 2 of this tutorial, right? Show you how to actually create the invoices. So the one thing that I normally do is click here, right click on it onto the number 19 and delete. And then I know that I won't mistakenly invoice the same thing twice. Right, that's quite important. You don't want to invoice a customer twice. They pay you twice and you've got to do a refund and go through all the headache, and it's just not worth the effort. So what's the conclusion? The conclusion here is that this spreadsheet may have 100, 200, 300, 1,000 entries inside of it, but this one spreadsheet will only ever represent a particular year. So we made probably one mistake here, right? And I'm going to show you the one mistake that we've made. I'm going to close this spreadsheet and I'm going to open up the folder on my desktop, and it's called 00 invoice tracker, and we'll put a date here. So the date shouldn't be 2019 or a particular date. It should be 2019 space V1. So this is version 1 of our spreadsheet. The reason why I create version 1 is I create a new folder and we'll call that one 00 archive. And this 00 archive folder, every so often, maybe every time I open up this spreadsheet and start doing new data entry on it, I will right click before I open it, drag it to here. So I'll hold down the right mouse button, drag it to here and make a copy. And then I just edit this one and make it version 2. So to rename this file here, let's undo that. To rename it, you can just click on it once and then click on it once again, and then it will allow you to edit it, or preferably just click on it and press F2 and then just go and change it to version 2. So when I open up this spreadsheet, it's identical to the one in the archive except for any new data entry that I do. I like to kind of make a little backup copy as I'm going along. If anything ever crazy anything crazy happens, to my spreadsheet, and I've done thousands of lines of information in here, it's going to be a problem, right? But if I do 3 lines of data entry, I save it and something goes wrong, I can just close this down, go to my archive, and I've got the original copy here. So I can just copy that back. I'll just make a copy of this, move it back to this root directory, rename it again, and then do my work again. Has that ever happened to me? No. To be fair, it's never happened. It's never happened that a spreadsheet's crashed or something crazy's happened. But you never know. You could be sitting in front of your computer and you get a power cut and your whole computer could turn off. I'm using a desktop computer. There's not a laptop with a battery attached to it. For some strange reason, you might have a power cut and your computer turns off while you're doing your work. So that could be a problem, right? So let's just do a quick overview and then we're going to end this tutorial, and then I'll put a link in the YouTube description for the second part where we'll create an actual invoice. We'll create a custom invoice template in Excel. So rather than just using a downloaded invoice template, I want to actually show you how to make your own invoice. That's quite important because if you've got control over that invoice, you can customize it exactly the way that you want it rather than using a default template in Excel, and then 9 times out of 10 it's in the wrong sort of formatting or there's some problem with it. Let's create our own custom invoice, but we'll do that in this second tutorial. Just want to do a quick summary of this particular video or this spreadsheet. So let's start from the beginning. In the beginning we need to create a folder Preferably you don't create it on your desktop, right? You create it in your My Documents, you create it somewhere else. Don't really store stuff on your desktop. I only put this here because it's a demonstration tutorial. I hardly ever store stuff on my desktop. If I do, it's very temporary, and then I move it to a proper location afterwards. Let's just say that we save this in My Documents folder on our computer. When we open up this folder, we created a blank spreadsheet, and then we named that spreadsheet. We should have correctly named it to Invoice Tracker 2019 version 1, yeah, V1, and we put a 00 at the end, because when we create our other spreadsheets, we'll have 01 and 02 master templates, right? Then inside of there, we started to create a spreadsheet. We added our column headers. We did some formatting when we did the column formatting for the type of data entry. And simply we put some dummy data in here to demonstrate how to do the data entry. And then I'll show you an example of why we color things blue. Blue tells us that it's not been paid, and green tells us that it has been paid. So there's a couple of things I want to show you before we finish. There's something called auto filters. So I'm going to click on number 1 here. Click on the number 1 that highlights all of these headers here, and we'll go to data, and we'll go to filter here, filter. And when we click on that, we're going to see these little arrowed boxes here, and these little arrow boxes allow us to filter this spreadsheet now. So I can click on the paid column. This is what I normally do sometimes. I'll click on paid, and then I will untick select all, and I'll select yes only, and then click OK. Now I can see only this the information that's related to all the invoices that have been paid. So if I click here and then tick no and untick yes and click OK, now I can see all the invoices that haven't been paid. So this is a quick way for me to reference all the companies that I need to chase up for payment. Some of them I won't be chasing yet, but if it's like the 17th and it's a 14-day invoice payment term, these ones here I should be chasing the client up and saying, you haven't paid it, it's 14 days payment term, please make payment, right? When you click data here, you're looking at these particular tools. If you click home here, you'll look at the basic tools on the home. This is where I normally leave it when I'm working. So how do we get back to our original spreadsheet? We click on paid here and then select all, click this option and click OK. Now you can see everything. If I ask you a question right now, how much money have we generated, or how much invoices, what's the total value of all the invoices that we generate, regardless if they've been paid or not paid? We can do that by clicking down here on this blank cell and use the AutoSum tool. So we click that and then we hit the enter key, and we can see during this period of the first almost 2 weeks of business, or 3 weeks of business, we've generated £3,562.50. So that's how much we've invoiced to our customers. That doesn't mean that's how much we've been paid. So if we click again on this paid column and we go to select all, tick it off, and then click on yes, and then click OK. Now we can click here and then do another auto sum and then hit enter, and that didn't work, so let's delete that. Let's left click here and drag up. Let's try it this way and then click auto sum. That didn't work either. Normally it should like give us a grand total here. Strangely enough, it doesn't want to do that. So let's see, let's try and fix that. I want to show you how to do that, right? So let's click here and do auto sum and then select these cells and then hit enter. Okay, so that's how we do it. So what we do is we select the blank cell here. So if you've got anything in there at the moment, just hit the delete key to delete it. Click on the auto sum tool and then highlight the ones that you want to calculate and then hit enter, and it will tell us we've been paid £1,992.50. And then normally what I do is click on this cell and then delete it. That's just to know how much we've been paid. And we'll click yes and then go to no and then click OK, and now let's find out how much is outstanding. So let's click auto sum. We'll click on this first cell, hold down the shift key on our keyboard and click on the last cell. That highlights all of them and hit enter. That's a quicker way of selecting all the cells, and we're owed £1,570. That's how much we're owed, and that's how much we've been paid. After you've done the auto sum, you should really delete this data. Go back to here, click select all of them and click OK. Now we're back to our original spreadsheet. You can kind of leave this one here. Normally what I do is I will click here, right click and then insert a new column, insert a new row, and then I'll right click and insert another new row. What if you wanted to insert 10 rows all at the same time? You could right click here, insert row, or if you wanted to insert 20 rows, you could sit here and right click and insert one row at a time, and you have to do that operation 20 times, right? So I'll show you a quicker way of doing that. Let's just say we want to insert 10 rows. So I'm going to right click here, insert one row, and I'll insert 2 rows. Now I've got 2 rows, I'll select them both. So I'll left click here and drag down to select both rows, and then I'll right click and insert again. Now it's insert 2 rows, and then I'll highlight all of these, right click again. Now I've got 8 rows, right? And I can right click again. I've got now 12 rows. That's how you can insert a lot of rows quite quickly. And if I only wanted 10, I could delete 2 of them, select these 2 and just delete them. Now I've only got the 10 rows that I wanted, rather than doing that operation one by one 10 times, right? It would take you forever. So let's right click here and delete this. Let's save this, and there's a few other things I want to show you before we finish. Sometimes you want to find out how much have you invoiced to a particular company throughout the whole year, or throughout a given period. Let's say this period here. We can click here, just as we can filter yes or no. We can select this and select Bojo company and click OK, and now we can see how much we've invoiced to this particular company. We can click here, click AutoSum, select those cells and hit enter, and we know that we've invoiced them £455. Let's click the delete button, or select the delete button to remove that, and that's how you can filter that out. And you can filter more than one company. You could do ABC and Bojo. Maybe they belong to the same business owner, but they're 2 different companies, and you want to know how much have you invoiced that particular person. We can click OK. Now we see both companies listed, right? You may want to say how much have we invoiced to all companies except for XYZ. We can do that. We'll click OK. Now we see all companies except for XYZ. We can click here, click AutoSum, select all of these and hit enter. Now we see all of the money that we received apart from that XYZ company. That's a bit of a strange kind of way of, pattern of doing something, but you never know, you may want to do that. Let's delete this. Let's click back here, select all, and then click OK, and then we're back to our original spreadsheet. So remember, one thing to note, right? Let me just show you here. Let's say that we want to see all the bank transfers. We'll click this one and click OK. Now sometimes it can get a little bit confusing because you might select you can actually run multiple filters, right? You can filter out bank transfers here, then you can filter out a specific company over here, for example, like Bojo only. Now we can see bank transfers that are all by this company called Bojo. And how do you know which filters have been used and which ones haven't? The icon here will change. It's really hard for you to see probably. If I zoom in, I don't know if it will enlarge. It doesn't really enlarge, so I can't really show you clearly, but let's just zoom to our maximum, around 170. The actual type of icon, if you notice, this one's got an arrow, and this one has a little filter sort of icon on it. If we click it, we'll see that it's been used. We'll just click select all and click OK. That's one part of the job done. To remove that filter, we'll click here, select all and click OK, and now all of them just got the little drop down arrow here, and now the spreadsheet's back to its original state. The last thing that I'll show you is what I normally do is click on this click on here to highlight the whole spreadsheet. Let's just save this work, and I'll click on this drop down menu and set the borders to all borders. I like to see the borders like this. Maybe you don't like it that way, but I like to see all the borders throughout the whole spreadsheet, and it just helps me to read the information a bit more clearly. Now everything's in its own column, it's got its own border, everything's very, very clear. So to summarize, we've got now quite a powerful spreadsheet that allows us to track all of these invoices that we sent to our customers, and we keep building on this spreadsheet throughout the whole year. So regardless what date you started on, we just happen to start on the 1st of the 1st 2019. It could be today's date, right? The 26th of the 7th 2019. That happens to be our start date of our business. So that time next year, the 26th of the 7th 2020, will be our end of year, and you'll have this one, you might only have 20 invoices in here, but 20 really big ones, or you might have 2,000 invoices in here of all small ones. You might have 2,000, hopefully 2,000 invoices of loads of big payments, right? I hope that for you as well. But regardless of what you see, what you have in this spreadsheet, you will see 2 things: green paid, blue unpaid, and that will be like gold dust for your accountant. Your accountant will be able to do your books super quick. He'll know how much you've been paid. He'll be able to look at your bank statement. All of these green have been paid. I can see them all on the bank statement. You're even telling your accountant the date that they got paid. How did they get paid? Here's the reference. You're giving him so much, or her so much information, that your accounting fees should be a lot less. If your accountant so happens to be charging you the same amount of money, regardless whether you do this work or not, then you need to find another accountant, because you're giving them, you're doing their job for them basically. In a way, a part of their job. I shouldn't say you're doing their job, you're doing a part of their job. But this job is more important to you than it is to the accountant, because this allows you to keep track of your payments, right? So it's not really for your, it's for your accountant, but it's more important for you than your accountant. Let's say put it that way. Okay, I've done a lot of talking. That is about 55 minutes worth of tutorial there for you to think about. I'm going to move on to the second part of this tutorial, where we will create this custom built Excel spreadsheet, where we will take some of this data and we're going to create some fictional invoices, and then I'll show you how I send those invoices to my customer just as a simple attachment in an email. And we're going to create PDFs of those invoices. I'm not going to send them spreadsheets. We'll use the spreadsheet to create the invoice template, but then we'll generate a PDF and we'll send them a PDF copy, right? So let's close this down. That's the end of this tutorial. I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea and we'll start the second part. So check the YouTube description for the second part of this small business bookkeeping tutorial. I hope you find this tutorial useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the second part.